then I've become a Bicablo trainer. So Bicablo is a technique for teaching visuals and also for using it based on very basic shapes. And so I use all that to work with people to achieve goals and to like use visuals to make sense of complex things, because in today's complex systems and in today's complex organizations, sometimes it becomes difficult to see or to understand what we're doing or why we're doing things. And by drawing it, I think it can help creating a better understanding. So I told a few things about myself, but I think it can be very boring when somebody starts rambling like that. So I wonder, and you can use the chat for that, you have a question for me and I will answer them. I give myself one joker. So feel free to send any question in the chat and I will answer it. I will take this sun timer for 1 minute because otherwise I might be waiting for too long. And at the end of the minute, if there's no questions, we will move on with the rest. Maybe you already know everything about me. You may also unmute your microphone and ask the question directly if you want to.
Or we might have some questions during the session or at the end of the session, maybe.
Yeah. What is the best thing I feel about Agile? Okay, thank you. That's a great question. For me, the best thing about Agile is when it's really about people going together and having a common understanding of what's happening and how to solve things. You know, it's not necessarily, I mean, it's like one of the first values is like people and interactions over processes and tools. And I think with that one, we can already solve 90% of the world's problems. So this is really, for me, it's one of the first times where people have been encouraged to talk to one another. So that's one of the best things. Thank you, KN. So where in the world are you? Oh, great question. Haha. I'm going to rename myself also to answer that question. I'm in a part of the world that is known for comics, because it's the country where Tintin was invented, and the Smurfs as well, so Belgium. We also have great chocolate and also fantastic beer. And this is just me speaking, but you know, Belgian beer is renowned to be a good beer. No more questions?
Okay.
Okay, so great. I've got questions for you now. So for that, please use the chat. So I will type the question in the chat so that you can answer it afterwards. Because I think it's important also to know what kind of expertise you have with visuals. So the first question is, in what way are you currently using visuals? So you may type your answer in the chat, or you may also answer with your voice. And again, it's 1 minute to send your answers to the chat. I could play some elevator music, but I will not. I think everyone will prefer not having elevator music. So in what ways are you currently using visuals? Okay, facilitation, yeah. Design, yeah. Great things. There's great ways to use facilitation, visuals in design. By showing things, explaining ideas to colleagues, process descriptions. Great. That's a great use of visuals, because sometimes, you know, with words we can get caught up and we think that in order to better describe we will use more and more sentences, but it's only the only impact is that it confuses people. Reporting, fantastic. Wow, I would love to hear more about how you use visuals for reporting. And visual notes, yeah. Explanation using storytelling, fantastic. Visualizing flow of work in value stream, yeah. Yeah, one pic replaces hundreds of words. Yes, exactly. Great. Showcase our view for better understanding. Exactly. Okay, so the minute is over, so we will move on to the next question. And there's fantastic answer in the chat. I'm repeating it so because of the recording, so that it doesn't get lost. So the next question is, are you ready? So again, it will be 1 minute, huh? So we still have extra answers. So the next question is, what do you find difficult in using visuals? So what kind of challenges do you find in using visuals? Where are the tough nuts to crack? Maybe there's nothing, huh? Maybe it's very easy. So you can say, Charles-Louis, your questions doesn't make any sense. It's very easy to use visuals. Expressing thoughts, yes. It takes a long time to make it as a picture, to find a good, appropriate picture, to fast explain ideas. Shortage of space on the sheet, oh yes. Formalization, how to represent thoughts, yes. These are the famous, I don't know if you play Pictionary, you always have these difficult terms in Pictionary where no one can represent them. Yeah, the thoughts, the ideas, all these kind of intangibles. It's also a word that is used sometimes in the Agile space, the ones that you can't really take a grasp on. Yeah. And the storage of space on the sheet, there's always an option there, is take another sheet. That's always a possibility. Regarding the finding a good appropriate pick, fast to explain ideas, yes, this is a challenge indeed, to really find something that can make sense, because in a way, when we talk to one another, we're using words, but the picture can be the link between that, and finding the link sometimes needs a few iterations. So that's also something. How to make it different? What do you mean by that, Charu?
Yeah, so nowadays, they are commonly used icons or metaphors. So that becomes very boring or very predictive, So how to make it more interesting and yeah, so.
Okay, fantastic. Because if everyone always draws the same icon, like, okay, for an idea, oh, let's draw a light bulb, fantastic, great, yeah, boring. Or, it's how to, because the idea of using visuals is just to work on the imagination aspect. And that's the fantastic thing. Great, thank you, lovely. So I've got one extra question for you. And again, it will be in the chat. So the last question I have for you, and then some people still join, so that's fantastic. They can answer this question. So the last question, so you will be able to put it in the chat, is what do you expect to get from this session? So again, 1 minute. What do you expect from this session? Well, that it's worth skipping lunch, maybe, something like that. Sorry, it's dinner time. It's dinner time. It's worth skipping dinner. Okay, new techniques. To learn visual facilitation. Wow. Yeah. I need to picture my view in paper. Okay, fantastic. There's 17 seconds left. It's a very precise sand timer. Get out of a visualization rut. Tips on finding right metaphors for the right thing. Oh, great. This is exactly what we're going to talk about. And time is up. So thank you. These are fantastic ideas. And you know what? I think it's really time that we start. This session is called If You Please Draw Me a Sheep. So there's some inspiration by a book by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Yes, I can pronounce it with a French accent because in Belgium we speak French. So, I think that what we'll do is I'll read you a chapter. It's the second chapter of the Little Prince Okay. And the interesting thing is, I mean, it inspired, of course, the title of this session, but there is a certain reason to it, and you'll see in a bit. So actually it's chapter 2, so it happens. I don't know if you've read The Little Prince or you heard about it. Actually, it's written by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who was a plane pilot, and oh wait. Sorry, I need to. Did you hear the last bit? I think my audio got cut off. So Antoine de Saint-Exupéry was a pilot, and then he got stranded in a desert. So chapter 2 is about that moment also where he meets the little prince. Okay, so I lived my life alone without anyone that I could really talk to until I had an accident with my plane in the desert of Sahara 6 years ago. Something was broken in my engine, and as I had with me neither a mechanic nor any passengers, I set myself to attempt the difficult repairs all alone. I'm going to switch my camera so that you can also see the visuals. It was a question of life or death for me. I had scarcely enough drinking water to last a week. The first night then, I went to sleep on the sand, 1,000 miles from any human habitation. I was more isolated than a shipwrecked sailor on a raft in the middle of the ocean. Thus you can imagine my amazement at sunrise, when I was awakened by another little voice. It said, "If you please, draw me a sheep." What? Draw me a sheep? I jumped to my feet, completely thunderstruck. I blinked my eyes hard. I looked carefully all around me, and I saw a most extraordinary small person who stood there examining me with great seriousness. Here you may see the best portrait that later I was able to make of him. Well, I won't show it because I didn't draw the little prince, but my drawing is certainly very much less charming than its model. So here you can imagine the little prince. Okay, that, however, is not my fault. The grown-ups discouraged me in my painter's career when I was 6 years old, and I never learned to draw anything except boas from the outside and boas from the inside. Now, I stared at this sudden apparition with my eyes fairly starting out of my head in astonishment. Remember, I had crashed in the desert 1,000 miles from any inhabited region, and yet my little man seemed neither to be straying uncertainly among the sands, nor to be fainting from fatigue or hunger or thirst or fear. Nothing about him gave any suggestion of a child lost in the middle of the desert 1,000 miles from any human habitation. When at last I was able to speak, I said to him, "But what are you doing here?" And in answer he repeated, very slowly, as if he were speaking of a matter of great consequence, "If you please, draw me a sheep." When a mystery is too overpowering, one dare not disobey. Absurd as it might seem to be, 1,000 miles from any human habitation and in danger of death, I took out of my pocket a sheet of paper and my fountain pen. But then I remembered how my studies had been concentrated on geography, history, arithmetic, and grammar, and I told the little chap, a little crossly too, that I did not know how to draw. Well, this is something, you know, all visualizers have probably heard at least once or twice in their life, you know. I did not know how to draw. He answered me, "That doesn't matter. Draw me a sheep." But I had never drawn a sheep. So I drew for him one of the two pictures I had drawn so often. It was that of the boa constrictor from the outside, and I was astounded to hear the little fellow greet it with, "No, no, no, I do not want an elephant inside of a boa constrictor. A boa constrictor is a very dangerous creature, and an elephant is very cumbersome. Where I live, everything is very small. What I need is a sheep. Draw me a sheep." So then I made a drawing. So he looked at it carefully and he said, "No, no, this sheep is already very sickly. Make me another." So I made another drawing. My friend smiled gently and indulgently. "You see yourself," he said, "that is not a sheep. It's a ram. It has horns." So then I did my drawing once more, but it was rejected too. just like the others. This one is too old. I want a sheep that will live a long time. By this time, my patience was exhausted because I was in a hurry to start taking my engine apart. So I tossed off this drawing. And I threw out an explanation with it. This is only its box. The sheep you asked for is inside. I was very surprised to see a light break over the face of my young judge. That is exactly the way I wanted it. You think that this sheep will have to have a great deal of grass? Why? Because where I live, everything is very small. There will surely be enough grass for him, I said. It's a very small sheep that I've given you. He bent his head over the drawing. Not so small that. Look, he has gone to sleep. And this is how I made acquaintance of the little prince. And this is also where I will stop the story. So, I'm curious, based on what you heard, what you make of this. You may type your answer in the chat or use the microphone to speak, shout, and say anything that's on your mind. Maybe refer back to what you find difficult to draw or what you want to get out of this workshop.
Maybe it tells us that we make a lot of assumptions. So when he was drawing a sheep, he was drawing an animal sheep, and he was making the assumption that he's looking for a sheep, but the prince was looking for something else.
Yeah. And also indeed, each time he drew a sheep, there was something wrong with that sheep.
Yeah.
And yeah, Charu, you write different perceptions. Can you maybe elaborate a bit on that? You can use your voice. Huh?
Yeah, so I feel that people imagine in a different way. We were talking about one thing, but both of they were thinking differently. So because they had different perceptions, maybe, and so in a way, I would say that when you imagine, it's a multi-dimensional thing. And so, yeah, this is what it indicated, basically.
Yeah, exactly. They have different perceptions. And then, if I ask you to draw me a sheep, and then, the first one was very sickly. Okay, very sickly. Okay, that's not good. Then another one, I want a sheep. No, that's a ram. Well, is a ram a sheep? Maybe, but not in the eyes of the little prince. And then this one seemed too old. And the little prince wants a sheep that lives longer. So what was the only way where the author was able to satisfy the little prince? What did he draw? Did he draw a sheep?
No, he did not draw a sheep. In fact, he drew a box. Like, he did not show the sheep at all, so that
Yeah,
he couldn't find any faults with it.
exactly. And this really ties back beautifully to what we said earlier about things that are difficult to draw. And about finding always the same icons for the same ideas. What if we took another spin at it? And the sheep is not about the sheep. The sheep is there. We all know it. It even has holes so that it can breathe, And we can
Right.
also look inside and see the sheep. Nikita, you wanted to say something.
No, I just said, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, and this is key when we're visualizers, because representing the reality is not what we are asked to do, actually. Otherwise, we would be artists. I mean, maybe yeah, that's a good question as well. What is actually the purpose of a visualizer? I'm going to put it in the chat. With an S, huh? Or a Z, I don't know. It depends on where you come from. So what's the purpose of a visualizer?
Non-linear thinking, because as I said that it enhances multi-dimensional thing. I mean, you can think of a same thing in from different perceptions, from different directions. So that's the beauty of it. And yeah, this is how I feel.
Yeah, so non-linear thinking means if you tell me, draw me a sheep, I will draw maybe something else. And then from that, we will get to better to the idea.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, great. Someone else has a few ideas?
Yeah, so I would say that the purpose of a visualizer is to convey more in less. So, you know, lots of things in one simple graphic, like just one very quick example. It was a long time back. I just wanted to explain it to my son that he's special. So I drew a couple of, round heads telling him that these are the other children. And then on top of it, I drew a diamond and I said that this is you. So, so just to convey a lot in just one small thing.
Yeah,
That's what I can think of.
beautiful, Raki, and thank you for sharing. It's really beautiful how indeed you can convey that using that that image. It's yeah, thank you. And
Can we also say that a visualizer is somebody who will make the other person also think creatively, his audience also to think creatively? So
yeah,
you put something in front of them which makes them think differently, makes them think creatively.
yeah, and that's exactly what happens with the little prince. At some point, he says, "Oh, look, he's gone to sleep." You know, with only that. So it's really that. It's about being able to start this process of thinking creatively by seeing something. The person in front will have other ideas, and it's really storytelling. Hey, you've got a box here. Your sheep is in there. You've got it. It's the sheep is just the way you want it. Just look in the holes. Imagine that. I might be. I wonder what Antoine de Saint-Exupéry would say if he were here. But it's just like maybe he kickstarted without knowing it the essence of visualization. So you know, on that, I think it's really great to have that. And I would like you maybe to go in a breakout room for, let's say, for 7 minutes. So Chari, if you can maybe create breakout rooms, maybe you can just create 2. I think, yeah.
Sure. And for how much duration?
So the idea is in the breakout room, let's say you'll have 7 minutes, and the idea is to take a few of the key points from that story, and that you convey that what key points are there in this chapter that are useful for a visualizer. So welcome back. So who would like to share some of the things you talked about?
I could go for the room 2. Sorry, I was in room 2. So we had very interesting discussion, and everybody had a different perspective on this. So Nilesh from our group said that we should always be conscious of who is our audience, and should be drawing according to the audience rather than what we are thinking. So should have thought that, you know, the prince is our audience, and what he would understand or want, we should have drawn accordingly. Then Raki said that, you know, everybody has a different perspective on things. So while visualizing, we should take that into consideration and draw accordingly, or, you know, convey accordingly. Khan had the same, that, you know, we should be aware of our audience, and it should be something which is likable to the audience, or the audience should be able to be convinced of that particular thing what we are drawing. Chris, it reminded Chris of requirement gathering and feedback. So doing the requirements, and then as per the feedback you were changing, and then at last end it pivoted. So you also need to pivot at some time.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
right.
Did you have enough time?
No, we didn't. We didn't. At the end, we had to just rush.
That was the end of the time box. Yeah.
Yeah, that was right. Yeah, so we had like this really interesting discussion.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. I like the fact of indeed, like, getting the perspective of the little prince. What would he expect? Draw me a sheep. Okay, I draw you. First, I can't draw. Okay, that's the thing that every starting visualizer says. I can't draw. That's the easy thing.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, I will draw you a sheep, but then no, it's not the right one, and then I draw a box. Okay, great, perfect, because then I can use my imagination too. And indeed, it's this whole connection that makes it work. And in a way, it's this whole, as you said also in the end, you do some stuff, you iterate, and then at the end you pivot. And here's your box.
Right.
And in a way, it's even the simplest of the drawings. That's the only one that I did live, by the way, because the sheep are more difficult.
Right, yeah.
So now it gets interesting for us as visualizers, because, in the beginning, I asked the question, what do you think is difficult to represent? And we had some words like thoughts and like ideas. So I was wondering, maybe we could try and exercise something, because you'll have your pens and your paper, or some of you do. And so for this, maybe we could use the camera at some point. So we will try to draw something, and then we will show it to each other when we're finished. Okay? So let's play a game where somebody puts an idea in the chat and we try to visualize it. So this is something that's totally not prepared. So there's no cheating involved. I haven't communicated to any of you beforehand to ask you to type something in the chat. So if you've got something. Because we also said earlier on that ideas are usually drawn with a light bulb, but it's always the same thing. So we could have something different. Okay. So maybe we can start from this. Oh, an extraterrestrial friend. Oh, great. An extraterrestrial friend. Oh, how to represent that? So, well, there's the friend aspect. So I guess I would be here. But this is not the friend yet. And maybe I'm thinking of a friend. Maybe I'll draw a ship, a spaceship. But maybe it's too complex already. You see how many details I'm putting. And I might be doing the sheep exercise here, where I'm adding something which is very... So this one might work, because we've got this spaceship, and then we've got this one, but it's quite complex actually, and there's no aspect of the friend. It might be somebody who's dreaming about something. So again, and this shows how by iterating, so I'm going to ask Nikita, what do you think of this? Because you're actually the client.
Yeah, so it shows that a person is thinking about a rocket and it's going somewhere, or would like to go outside Earth, like in the space.
Mm-hmm. So what's maybe missing?
I think the friend, the relationship, the friendship perspective, that that person is my friend, or
Yeah. So maybe another option is, and just for the sake of yeah, maybe I'll draw it this way. So we've got this person here, okay, and then we've got this rocket also with the extraterrestrial friend. I'm still going to draw it like this, but again, you know, this is the very rough draft, and then we could have maybe something like here, a big heart in the middle connecting them.
Right, yeah.
So this might be, you know, if again with the feet and then here, so they might be thinking of one another.
Yeah, yeah.
And then of course we can always add some details, you know, like a frame, and add here some kind of separation to indicate maybe they're far away. Like in comic books, huh? Sometimes they use this kind of
yeah.
So what do you think of this one now?
Yeah, this one gives that idea that they are friends and they are connected to each other.
Great. Cool. Yeah. So we've got one now. Who else has an idea? Something they'd want to try out. And maybe did somebody here also draw something? I'd be curious to see if any of you drew something maybe different or similar, and that you can show to the camera.
So I also attempted drawing. So let me just yeah. Camera, I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They're hand in hand with a terrestrial with one eye and some tentacles.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Something also that's important.
So it's extra.
Go ahead. Nikita, go ahead.
No, that's about it. So I just like imagined extraterrestrial and drew it. So.
Yeah, I like the fact that they're holding hands, so it's even more like they're closely together.
Yeah.
Also, something it's useful to write, also to write the title. When I do a drawing, I like also using words because we're not trying to play a guessing game with our audience.
Okay.
All right. So any other idea? Someone wants to try something out? Someone wants to...
Yeah, I also tried something.
Yep.
So is it visible?
Yeah.
So I also left to Nikita's imagination how that friend would look like. So just a waving hand and other hand with a heart. And Nikita is standing on earth, waving to his friend or her friend, sorry.
Right. Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
So here it's really interesting for you, Nikita, because you're the little prince, huh? And then you're getting some people who show you drawings, and I think Raki also has something. Raki. Yeah. Oh, lovely.
Oh, nice. Oh. Okay, so it also has a ship that has landed on the tree and they're met. That's nice.
Yeah, and I think maybe here it would be interesting to just pause a little bit and then ask Nikita, you've seen now different drawings and you've asked something, so there's different representation of that. I don't think one may be better than the other, but just for you as a client, the fact of having received all these drawings, what's the impact on you?
So I feel I have a lot of choices, and another thing that I felt is that some elements have come into these drawings which even I had not thought of. So like I had imagined it to be hand in hand because they're friends, but even like being apart from each other, you can be friends. So that was a perspective that I had not thought about, but that I got from you guys that, okay, you know, that way also we can show they're connected and they're friends.
Mm. Yeah, like when Charo is showing the waving hands, so that you can imagine how he looked like. So a bit like the little prince could imagine how the sheep looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is really key as visualizers, huh? There's one thing is maybe we need to approach our visuals as a little prince that doesn't know anything, and not as someone who knows things. I don't know if that makes sense. Because the more we know, the more details we add, and then maybe, you know, it's like the first one. And when I drew it, I already saw that there was some kind of disconnection, and it was not really it. So we need to sometimes take a step back from the reality and try to say, okay, you know, what could I draw? And also, what can I draw? You know, we don't need to be able to draw like everything. You know, there's so many different aliens we can see in movies or whatever, comic books. We can just, a few simple lines is already enough. Or just maybe showing 2 planets and a telephone behind, you know, there's so many different options. And when we approach these with our beginner's mind, you know, this is really why I use this reference from The Little Prince, because we need to approach all this with the beginner's mind, because that will open up the creativity and the link to our customers. And I love what you said, Nikita, about the fact that by seeing the drawings, you saw some ideas that you didn't even think of. And this is why this is why we do what we do. This is why we use visuals and not words, right?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of actually visual thinking. You are not limited. You know, you can explore as much as you can. You can have wild imagination, a very wide perspective. So that's the beauty of it. Charles, I have one question. You know, while like you are taking visual notes or maybe doing a graphic recording, how about you know, you might miss some key points, or the narrator feels, you know, that's not what I meant, or that's not, you know, the things that I wanted to emphasize on.
Yep.
So, you know, how to, because if we are brainstorming, it's fine, we can talk later and we can put in our ideas. But how about visual note taking and graphic recording, because then you don't get to connect, and you are already shared. So how we can bridge that gap?
The way I bridge the gap, and I'm just telling you my story here, is by doing this. By writing words. And when I write words, I am careful in picking words that have been spoken. If I translate it, like, you know, a body from afar, we lose the meaning. Maybe it's easier to write a body from afar than an extraterrestrial friend, because extraterrestrial is very hard to write. Thank you, Nikita. But, you know, by translating, we lose the meaning. So I focus on making sure that I capture the words that are being spoken. I don't know if that's useful, Charo.
Certainly, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that means that I don't always draw, I also write. And then, you know, sometimes when when doing the recording, at some point you see they're going in circles, talking always about the same thing. So that's maybe one thing where I can work on some other parts of my visual.
Okay.
You know, it's about knowing where to look for what. So I would like you to go in a breakout room for 5 to 7 minutes, and in group, you are going to do exactly what we did earlier with the extraterrestrial friend. You are going to iterate together and represent longing. Of course, you will not have access to me until the end of the breakout rooms, but that's the game. And then we will work on that. But you can already iterate in groups. All right? Any questions before you are sent to your rooms? And it's not a punishment. No questions? So Charu, you can send, I think, everyone to the rooms. Everyone's coming back now.
Yep.
I'm curious. I've been longing for this moment. Okay, Rati, you've got a smile. Oh, wow. I love it. This is the business person. Yeah, I wish. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, they're both longing. Fantastic.
We just want, to show that, this person wants to relax like this person. And this person who's got nothing to do wishes that he had the job and he was also wearing a tie and going to the office to maybe be a rich man, successful man.
Yeah, I love it. Very good. Fantastic. Thank you. And the other group, you have something to show?
Yeah, so in our group, I had one drawing, but even Chris had a very nice drawing. So it would be nice if she can share hers.
Chris, it's your moment now. Okay. Charu, can you maybe spotlight Chris? And Chris, you're on mute.
Unmuted.
Great. Wow. Wonderful. I see the heart coming out, and it's really longing to, hey, when can I see you or hug you again? It makes me think of this whole, physical distancing or social distancing, however you can call it, is, hey, I want to hug someone.
Right, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. So now I'm curious, because I'd love to hear your feedback from the groups. I'm going to put again in gallery view so that I can see everyone. How was this whole process of working together and creating a visual for a concept like longing? How did it go as a group? What did you?
Well, it made us. Actually, me and Nilesh also drew something. Nilesh, would you like to share it?
Mine is the same like that, but you have the actual representation that we actually thought of.
Okay, so Charles, we actually tried to think in a different way, and longing. When it comes to longing, so like Chris had what Chris had drawn, longing to meet someone. And when we actually started discussing it, we thought maybe somebody is longing to be successful or be rich, or things like that. So we thought maybe let's draw, have a comparison, and just let's leave our audience in that fix that, oh, who is in a better position. So like that. So we came up, both of us, we came up with this idea that let's draw this. So it was a brilliant exercise that we could think out of the box and think in a different way, not just a typical way, what comes, the first thing that comes to our mind. No. So we discussed and we came up with this, and it was a brilliant exercise. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Initially it sounded difficult, but yeah, but then it was easy.
Yeah, and this is wonderful. And it's totally coming back to what Charu was saying earlier on the nonlinear thinking. It's also one that's difficult to pronounce, nonlinear thinking. Thank you, Raki, for sharing.
Yeah, Charles, we had a question. Like we, everyone in our group almost do the same thing. Like they're longing for something. Like Chris drew, she was longing for some person. I drew, we're longing to have an ice cream or something.
Yeah.
But we were thinking, then we thought that how can we represent longing without showing the object? So we're just trying to represent that, you're longing, that burn. rather than
Yeah.
having an object associated with it. And we frankly couldn't come up with an idea, but yeah, we were thinking on those lines and we did a bit of brainstorming for that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to represent it without an object, but maybe one thing that could work to represent without the object is to have maybe a set of puzzle pieces with one piece missing.
Is it, Nikita, you were trying to make a feeling? I mean, you wanted to make a visual of feeling, is it?
Yeah, that's
Because
right. So yeah, we were thinking of like how to because the word it was given was longing. It didn't say longing for what. So that feeling, that idea that is longing, that we wanted to represent.
Yeah.
But
So again, it's a difficult one, because you could imagine a puzzle that is almost complete and that is longing for its last piece, because sometimes objects can also have feelings. Huh? This is something that we also use in the coaching practice, or if you use narrative therapy, you can also use or make objects have emotions or speak. So you could imagine a puzzle longing for its last piece, and you don't draw the object.
mm,
Or have maybe a cupboard, and again with something missing somewhere, so you could show some object and then again here a question mark, like, and this is sometimes also used in comics. You've got like a question mark with some lines around it, show that something is missing.
right.
But
Or
indeed,
can we
yeah,
can
go
we
ahead.
also show like a window and a person is sitting in the window with like staring in space?
Nikita, you know what? Your display pic gives me that feeling, that longing. And this is what exactly you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And what is happening right now between Nikita and me, and also with Charu, is this is the exact process of brainstorming on how we could represent it. And it's fantastic, because the more you draw it, the first one you draw, yeah, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. And and you actually share that when you drew something with an object, or longing to see a person, or longing to have an ice cream, and then you discuss on, hey, how can we represent it differently? This is exactly the same process as the aviator and the little prince. Like, hey, this sheep is too sickly, this one is a ram, this one is too old, and bit by bit you will get to another representation. And coming back to one of the first things we said, I will not paraphrase it exactly, but it's boring to always use the same visuals for the same concepts. And I would encourage you to continue to play that exercise with your colleagues, with your friend or fellow visualizers, whenever you have something and you'd like to revisualize it. This is my go-to icon. What if we do it differently? What if this go-to icon, the light bulb for the ideas, okay, it's good for this, but what does it leave out if I use a light bulb? Maybe it's a bit too technical, mechanical. And maybe it's, and then, okay, how can we bring in more emotion or different things? And this is exactly the thought process that you can do, and that we've experimented right now with a few exercises. And coming back to the little prince, if you please draw me a sheep, and then you draw a box, and it's wonderful because it's exactly what they wanted. And this silence is also good to let reflection come in also. I wonder, is there anyone who would like to maybe share anything or share any feedback that hasn't been said yet, maybe about the exercise, about what kind of insights that you had?
I think the way Nikita and Rakhi mentioned that they talked, and though I was not participant, but when while listening to them, I could sense that they were compelled to think in a different way. and they at the same time they wanted to leave up to the rest of the audiences what they come out of that visualization. So that gives you whole space, you are not limited, you are not restricted. So many ideas and many dimensions, perceptions, perspectives are coming at the same time, and that's the beauty, because you might have not thought of that, and just by with the visualization many things are coming to your mind, and that is widening your thoughts and your thinking.
Yeah,
So
I like that, Charu, because it's really from concept to paper, reality, something tangible. We were discussing earlier while you were in breakout rooms how we still like to use pen and paper because it makes it, sorry for the noise, it's something that you can hold and it makes it real in a way. I've tried to get into the digital space and so on, but I don't know, maybe I need the extra push, but for now I'm still using my pen and paper because I like it. And it's a way to get from the mind to the concrete. And then once we see it, we can again go upload to the mind and try to say, okay, what can I come up next with? And then I come back to the concrete. And this iterative process, for anyone who has heard about Agile, you might have heard of, iterations, maybe, I don't know. Rings a bell. So, and I think this is really the visualization thing. It's something, it's better to draw a lot and throw it away, but to improve on it, than to wait, I still need to get my perfect visualization idea before I commit to drawing anything on the paper.
I really like the reminder to not stay stuck in one domain.
Mm.
You're drawing a sheep, you don't literally have to draw a sheep.
Yeah, exactly. And this is key, and thank you for highlighting this, Chris, because that's also why I chose this chapter, and the title for this session, because we don't have to draw a sheep. And people come to me and always ask me, hey, Charles-Louis, how would you draw this? And it's an invitation. Actually, maybe I should each time send them a copy of the little print, read chapter 2 and then come back to me.
that's really nice.
Yeah.
Charles, could you also give us a few more tips how we can sharpen our visualization, or how we can keep exercising?
Yeah. So actually the thing is, I can tell you what works for me, but I don't know you. So maybe it would also be interesting to see, I mean, for yourself, what works. To me, what works is to keep my paper and pen handy, and whenever I get some time, it can be as easy as putting 10 minutes a day and to draw a few icons. Okay, or it can be as easy as one TED talk a week if you don't have a lot of time. I say TED talk, but it can be anything. It can, I mean, I'm not at all affiliated with TED or whatever, but it's just like find something you listen to. It could even be your children's presentation for school, while they recite it, rehearse it for school, you can also sketch, hey, this is what I've heard. What do you think? Huh? So find any excuse to do it. Could even be a recipe, just anything. Because, and if it doesn't work, draw a box. So I think, yeah, that's the only thing. Be kind to yourself and draw boxes if it doesn't work. Because boxes are always good because the idea is inside. The thing you try to draw is in there. Great. I see that time is ticking, and I would like for everyone who's still there, I know that it's very late in India, but at least to have maybe in one sentence of feedback given by voice, so that it can also be heard. So what kind of maybe one thing that you take away from this session. And the first person who speaks, speaks and sends the next one. Oh, sorry, Raki.
Okay. Okay, Charles. So one thing that I am taking with me from the session is that, like Chris just said, that it's not always you have to, you know, you just don't have to visualize exactly the way things are being said. There could be other alternatives. I don't know. It's just that the perspective has to change. Like, I always think in terms of people, in terms of objects, in terms of things which are existing around me. So that's it. It can be different from that. So a different viewpoint maybe. So I take this away from from this session with me.
Thank you, Raki. You may select the next person to speak.
Charu?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Raki. So for me, I really like the tip, where objects were used to express the feelings, the longing one. I really like that. So that's the combination of metaphor and the expression. So I really like that, and I would keep trying that, and I would explore more. So yeah, that's one of the takeaways for me. And so now I'll pass to Chris. Chris?
Like I said, shifting domains, but in particular, shifting out into the object domain instead of the living domain, where I might have a better chance of drawing it so that people could see it.
Mm. Thank you, Chris.
And Nilesh.
What I would say is, when we are, visualizing something, it's better to think, am I declaring something or exploring something? Because if we are, if you would take, cycle or a chart, and if it's just a line chart, so it's not an actual data, it's a concept, it's a trend line. So that's what I would like to add.
Mm. Thank you, Nilesh. So I guess you pass it on to Nikita, who hasn't spoken yet, right?
Yeah, thanks. So my takeaway would be that visualization is an iterative process. So I don't have to have it correct in the first go. I can just put down whatever I think of initially, and then get feedback, think on it, discuss it, and keep on improving it. So I would come to the point where it is what we are looking for.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you all for staying till the end of the session. It was really wonderful to have you all there. I would also like to really thank you, Charu, for having me and letting me experiment with this new session. So you are the first ones in the world who have experienced it. So that's
we are fortunate.
Yes.
And thanks to you, it was such a wonderful session, such an interactive session, and so many new things. So thanks to you, Charles, and it was really wonderful to have you on the session.
Thanks. I would like to add something, because I'm running also sessions on, I would call it story listening, not storytelling. I wrote storytelling, story listening, where actually we are listening to stories together and then discussing what we can learn from them. I'm currently in the middle of the second season, and there's 2 sessions left. Basically, each session is totally independent. So you can join even if you didn't do the first few ones, because at each session starts with a special story, a bit like we did here with The Little Prince, all right? But there we're more interested in the story and less on the visuals. And it's a pay what you want thing. So if you're curious, if you want to participate, I just put the link in the chat and you can have a look. The next session is 2 weeks from now on Wednesday. So I think it's December the 2nd. It's afternoon time in Belgian time. So
that'll be evening, maybe, or
Yeah, I think it's 5 o'clock in Belgium, so which
So it
means
was 8:30
9:30.
p.m. Yeah,
8.
8:30 p.m. because I think 3.5 hours yeah ahead.
Yeah, probably. I know about Belgian time. So.
An hour ago? Is that when it started?
So yeah, it's an hour ago.
Okay.
Great, thank you, Chris.
And I would highly recommend this. I was part of his previous say, and they were really great. Even my son used to come and attend with me, and he too enjoyed it a lot. And on that note, my son just came and saw you on the camera, and he's saying that you're listening to story alone without me. So he thought you're having another story session.
Thank you, Nikita. Say hi to your son from me.
Definitely, I'll let him know.
So
Great.
Charles, I want to know more about your workshop. Is it that listening is equally important while we are doing visualization, or is it something related to it, or it's something different?
So this workshop has no roots in the visualization. Its roots are in a book of fairy tales that I bought, and then I started reading it, and I saw some parallels in the business life. Then I thought, hey, let's do a workshop around it. So first I proposed it in a few conferences, and then the lockdown happened, and then I said, hey, what can I do? I can tell stories, and hey, let's organize that so that people from all over the world can attend. And so that was the birth of it. And so it's really about, we listen to a story, and then there's some questions, work in breakout groups, and then we come back and then we combine our ideas. So it's really about, it's not storytelling, it's really the listening part, where we see, okay, how does that refer to me? And it was really interesting that the first season, for instance, because we had countries in different levels of lockdown or pandemic, and sometimes the stories also echoed what was happening for people in their daily lives. And yeah, so, and also, I mean, Nikita can tell you more about what happened, because she was part of the breakouts. I wasn't, so there's a lot of things that I don't know actually.
Yeah, so we used to have really interesting conversations, and we connected with people from all over the world. And like we saw today, everybody comes with a different perspective, and the same thing we can see with different perspectives with everybody else. That was very interesting. Yeah.
Thank you.
Nikita is huge fan of Charles. Nikita, you remember you told me about Charles once we had conversation.
Yeah, I remember. So yeah, that's when I was attending his stories, and we really used to have a great time that time. And in the pandemic, like everybody was in a lockdown, so it was a nice change. Listening to stories, meeting people, getting to know different people. So it was really nice.
Yeah, and somebody even told, I think at the end of the first season, someone drew a picture of people sitting around a campfire, because they thought that was what these sessions were to them. Like we were all sitting around a campfire listening to stories. So, yeah. Okay. So again, huge thanks to all. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if we haven't yet. So maybe I'll add the link. I mean, otherwise you can just find my name, but
so I'll be sharing the recording. So maybe I'll share your LinkedIn profile and the link for the workshop that you have just shared. So yeah. I'll share the same in the email as well. That will contain recording.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Charu, Raki, Chris, Nilesh, Nikita. You've been wonderful, and I love the feedback for this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. It was amazing. It was amazing. Thanks for such a creative, session with wonderful and innovative ideas. I really loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a nice weekend.
You too. Have a nice weekend. And thank you, everybody, for staying with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.